Hello farmers and aspiring farmers, thank you for tuning into yet another informative edition of your program. This is Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness, and I'm Wadzanai Manyore. So today we are coming to you from Mashonaland West in Banket at Gwina Farm, where we are looking at soybean production success story. We are going to be looking at it from two perspectives, the fertilization program and also the chemicals that they incorporated to ensure that they established a beautiful clean crop this 2023-2024 soybean production season. To discuss this and more, I've taken the liberty of inviting Elizabeth Mukojo Musimi. She is a seasoned agronomist working with NutriMaster right here in Zimbabwe. Elizabeth, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Waza, for having me.
Yes. As we get into our discussion, Liz, I want us to look at the importance of planting dates of soya beans here in Zimbabwe. And also, why is it that? I understand that there is a reason why we decide to establish our soya bean in that given period. I'm saying that because you'd find that during our rainy season, we have farmers, those that are panicky, and the last minute farmers who might want to say, can I squeeze in my soya bean? I'm still getting phone calls from farmers saying, can I still get into soya bean production given that it is now raining? Talk to us in terms of planting periods and planting dates that are appropriate for soya bean production.
So thank you, Waza, for that question. The ideal planting dates in Zimbabwe range from mid-November to mid-December. We say optimum planting dates because this is when we get the highest possible yields. And the reason behind that is this is, it's over years of history, with knowing what rains we receive and what heat units we receive. So we want to ensure that this window makes you are guaranteed that you get the millimeters that you need to the end of the season, and also you get the heat units that you need. So after 15 December, if you are planting, you're not really targeting the highest yield. You are planting, you will get a yield, but not the optimum yield.
Now, Liz, I want you to align soil testing and analysis with yields when it comes to soybean production. Most people end up shying away from soybean production because the yields can at times be unfavorable for our local Zimbabwean farmers. Can you align the importance of soil testing and analysis, how it is equivalent or how it plays a pivotal role when it comes to the yields?
So with soybean, Wadzanai, it's what we call, they enjoy what we call inherent soil fertility. So this is to say that the soil has to have some sort of fertility on its own. So conducting a soil test gets the farmer to know what it is they're up against. They know exactly how much is in the soil before they start the season. So that way they know what to add on. But more importantly, the soils that are very fertile are the most suitable for soybean farming. So let's say you're on a farm and you're trying to choose which plot to use for what. The highest, with the highest fertility then goes to soybean production. I mean, there's also fertilizers that will advise to also add on, but it's important that the soil has its own inherent soil fertility, and also it helps us to see the pH. The pH has to be around 5.5. We want to see what is in the soil. Is there too much magnesium? Is there too much calcium? What sort of liming material are we actually going to recommend the farmer to use? So it's important for the farmer to establish that right at the beginning of the season.
Looking at basal dressing, I understand that some farmers, before they plant, they inoculate. I would want you to talk to us in terms of the importance of soybean seed inoculation ahead of planting, and also the essential nutrients within a basal fertilizer. At times, maybe basal dressing, potatoes or whatever, saying basal dressing, soybean. So I want you to align the essential nutrients, a basal dressing, soybean production, the soybean crop, and also just a general importance of inoculating the seed before planting it.
So I'll talk on this particular farm, Wadzanai. There was a liquid inoculant that was used. That's liquid rhizobium. So we know that soybean is a legume, so it fixes its own nitrogen, meaning to say it takes nitrogen from the atmosphere and then it builds its own requirements. So that's why we inoculate at the beginning of the season. And the liquid inoculant that we used here, it becomes very efficient in terms of being able to help that crop fix that nitrogen properly. And then from there we now look at the NPK, like you rightfully said. We've got a number of NPKs, and it goes back to the soil analysis we discussed earlier. It has to come in with the NPK. After we've seen what's in our soil, we then choose the NPK that works for the soybean crop. So we've got a number of NPKs that are advisable. We've got a 5-12-24, we've got a 5-20-33. Other people are using a 5-18-35. It really depends. So let's say I've seen my soil's got low phosphate and I want to try and build it up. I'll probably go with a 5-20-33. Or if I'm trying to build up my potassium as well. I can go for a 5-20-33 as well. So it depends what the soil report has shown me, and then from there we select the basal fertilizer that is to be used. But in general, between 200 at most 300 kgs, but I know between 200 and 250 kgs is sufficient to establish your crop.
Okay, now Liz, you are an expert, you are an agronomist. I understand that there are maybe certain scenarios whereby your company, your organization is capable of coming up with a program specific for a farmer. Even if you are here at Gwina Farm, you can get a fertilizer program that is specific to you according to your soil test results and even the report that you get. Talk to us in terms of farming as a business, getting those specific details or specific recommendations for your soil as a farmer.
So you rightfully said farming is a business. We don't want to throw nutrients into a land that are not needed. So the first thing is to ensure that whatever we've seen on the report, we know exactly what we're trying to do. So are we going to build the phosphate for this crop or for the next crop? What is our plan for the year? That is then when we become business people. We're not just throwing nutrients into the soil and trying to see a very nice looking crop. We are trying to make money, and every dollar that you invest in your fertilizer is going to show at the end of your season. So you have to ensure that whatever it is that you're putting in, you're going to get out. So at times my soil I might realize my soil has got lots of nutrients. I actually don't need as much potassium, like you said. I'll come to Liz and say, Liz, can I get a lower potassium or lower spec soybean blend? Then we can blend it for you. You know, so it's a matter of spending your money wisely, because you will see that there are areas in soybean production where you actually spend a lot of money. So you have to save that money for those operations.
I want us to look at the top dressing. We spoke of the basal fertilizer. Moving along, I want us to talk about the top dressing that is essential or that is recommended for the soybean crop. At times you would find that most of our Zimbabwean farmers, shortcuts, they might not even understand when to come in with top dressing. Sometimes you don't know because Munu didn't have it at hand. They might delay coming in with the top dressing. Talk to us in terms of amounts or kilograms expected per unit area per hectare, and also the essential nutrients within the top dressing that is required by the soybean crop for proper development.
So what we're trying to do, you remember the inoculant I spoke about earlier? So that's fixing nitrogen, and the same nitrogen is the one that we normally come in with top dressing. So that's in your ammonium nitrate. There's 34.5% nitrogen in AN. So what we're doing when we're top dressing, normally if your inoculant has done its job well, if your soil is healthy, you might find you don't even need to put top dressing. But in the case that there are conditions, like if the soil is too wet, there's a bit of waterlogging, fixation, the nodulation of the rhizobium might be affected because of the conditions. So in those in such circumstances, you find that you now need to come in with top dressing. So that's when we recommend between 100 and 150 kgs of AN, and that will give you sufficient nitrogen to make it look as green as it's looking now.
Thank you so much, Liz. I like that, Shirley, the fact of making it look green, lush green, beautiful, and endless sea of the soybean crop, meaning the farmer here knew what he was doing.
Exactly.
On that note, viewers, we've come to the end of the first segment. We're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the second segment. Stay tuned. Thank you, Zimbabwe, for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness, in support of Vision 2030. We are here in the second segment of your program, and we are coming to you from Gwina Farm in Banket, Mashonaland West, where we are looking at soybean production, the success story, the fertilizers that they applied, and also the chemicals that they used to ensure that they are producing a clean soybean crop. Now, viewers, we encourage you to be a part of these conversations. Feel free to get in touch with the producer, Wadzanai Manyore, on 0772-807-506. Alternatively, you can like our Facebook page, Agribusiness with Wadzanai, make a follow-up on this episode and more, and leave your comments and suggestions. They are most welcome to us. It's our YouTube channel is Agribusiness with Wadzanai. We're also now available on X, formerly known as Twitter. It's at Agribusiness 110. This is where most of these discussions take place. Now, Liz, we are here in the second segment. Welcome back.
Thank you, Adza.
We spoke of basal fertilizer and top dressing. Now I want us to look at some of the supplements that a farmer can take advantage of that are on the market, looking for certain nutrients that he might get from maybe foliar fertilizers. And also I want you to demystify the misconception that is already existing in our farming community at the moment, whereby foliar fertilizer, granular, the traditional one doesn't matter anymore because I now have foliar fertilizer. Can you talk to us in terms of those nutrients that a farmer will be hunting for when he goes for the foliar fertilizer, and also demystify the misconception that foliar fertilizers are there to replace our traditional fertilizers?
So the basal fertilizers have got NPKs. Those are the primary macronutrients that are required by crops. But then with the foliar fertilizers, what we're trying to do is to now cater for the trace elements. There are 16, arguably 17 essential nutrients that crops need. So for you to be able to put everything in a basal fertilizer is not practical. So that's where you come in with the foliar fertilizers, and they normally then take care of the trace elements requirements of a crop. I know there are a number of foliar fertilizers that are available, the Nutri-Starts, Nutri-Grows, Nutri-Blooms. They've got trace elements that will ensure that the crop then can be able to, get to the yield that we're looking for. Ndogana nichitaura wadza kuti matrace elements akadafanana ne salt. Kuti salt tinoida iri shoma muriwo kana ikashayikwa muriwo haunaki.
Yes.
In as much as nyama ndohombe, muriwo ma vegetables ndo mahombe, basal fertilizer ndohombe, asi tikasaisa munyu muriwo unodyika.
Unoto notice out pane something chakashota.
Musisina. Saka that's very important. Tunoona ma yield gap aya tunozoona kuti ko muviri miwo pa next door akawana batanza akawanda. Indakaisa zvakafanana kone ndisina kuzosvika pakasvika. That's the difference between the next door farmer and this farmer. And so you find that we want to ensure that we have taken care of our nutritional requirements to be able to get to the yield that we're looking for. And just to answer your question, foliar fertilizers, like I say, the ones I was speaking about, 2 liters per hectare. You cannot apply everything in 2 liters, Wadza. It's not practical. So at the end of the day, we're trying to be as practical as possible. We do our basals, then we come in with foliar fertilizers.
Let us talk about chemical use in soybean production, beginning with herbicides. So rarine manyemwe, if rikaregererwa rinokwanisa kutokura kudarika chirimwa chacho. Meaning that we have various types of herbicides and even the active ingredients that are essential of paramount essence when it comes to producing your soybeans. Can you talk to us in terms of the weeds that are normal or rampant in soybean production, and the chemicals that you use to control such weeds?
So in the past 2 or so years, there's been euphorbia. It has been a big problem in soybean production. In some places, nutsedges as well. Fendea has been a problem. So what we advise farmers to do is to be able to plan at the beginning and to know your lands. Because what happens is if you choose a herbicide now, you might have a solution as a pre-emergent herbicide for the problem that you have. But then post-emergent, there are no solutions. So if you don't know your farm, now your soybean is up, now you have a problem, now you don't have a solution. So it's important for you to then choose your line, work with your spray program right at the beginning of the season. I'll then just dive into the actual herbicides that we recommend for soybean production. You want your pre-emergent herbicide, you want to clean the land before. So your glyphosate is really important. Be it the powder or the liquid, just get a glyphosate that is actually good quality to clear your land so that before you plant, your land is clean. Then you come in with the pre-emergent herbicides. The good combination that I've seen over the years is metolachlor and metribuzin. You come in with that, it will take care of your weed spectrum at the beginning of the season. And then from there, some people now are saying that you have to know what your problems are. If you've got purple nutsedge issues, Authority, it's a very expensive chemical. But if you've got issues with nutsedge, you need to then come in with it as pre-emergence. But then if you then realize it later, your options are limited. So now that's when we really emphasize the need of a farmer to actually know their land.
Okay. Now from herbicides, let's go on to fungicides. Especially with the coming of the rains week in, week out, you need to have a very good or robust chemical application system in place or program in place. Because rains usually come with certain diseases or the thriving of certain insect pests. I want us to look at fungicides before we move on to insecticides that you have or pesticides that you have. I want us to look at fungicides. What are those that you would recommend for soybean farmers and their effect or the positive effect that they bring in within a soybean cropping venture?
The most important thing to realize, Wadza, is that keeping the crop clean is important. You will find that those who into the seed, who sell seed, soybean seed will tell you that the most critical time is pod fill. This is when you make your yield. So this is the time that you need to keep your leaves clean and make sure that they can feed those pods so that you get the yield that you're looking for at the end of the season. What we then advise our farmers to do is, I always say this, Wadza, kana shizha iri rikajiwane chirwere ukaspraya richakura futere patodyiwa padini
patodyiwa.
Saka zvatinonyanya kurudzira varimi vedu ndechekuti uchitanga mwaka wako gara waronga program yako. So what we're trying to do is have a plan. I'm going to spray this fungicide and that fungicide and that fungicide. What successful farmers do, they normally do 2 to 3 sprays per season. They come in at day 50, 45 to day 50, day 70. If they've got issues, they'll come in at day 90. Okay. And those are the 3 most crucial times to actually apply your fungicides. The disease of most importance, or the problem rather, that you have is rust.
Okay.
Soybean rust is real, so you need to make sure that you take care of that. And to do that, there are products like Optistrobi, which has got difenoconazole and it's got azoxystrobin. So it's got a 2 combination. It's got 2 actives. That way, you've got a wider spectrum, and you're taking care of more problems, and you ensure that your crop looks clean like this. So you also then have other fungicides like your tridimenol. You also have your propiconazole. You also have your Foliar. So now it's a matter of then coming in with your choices. Which choice do you have? Normally you come in with the less aggressive, or less, I don't want to say effective because that's not right, but the less aggressive fungicides early on, and then when you then come in with the Optistrobis then come in on the second spray, and then that way you ensure that your crop is clean.
Yeah, finally, Liz, in a snippet as we close, what are those insect pests that are a menace in soybean production, and what is their control or chemicals in place to curb the risks that come with those insect pests?
So you'll find that there'll be, cutting pests that you can see
chewing and cutting pests.
Chewing and cutting pests. Unlike in maize, where you have the devastating fall armyworm, it's not the case in here. But you still have to come in with something that takes care of laps, which are your cutting, and then that takes care of your sucking pests, which can be anything really, a wide spectrum. So we've got products in the market that can take care of that. A combination product, again, one of them is Optimeta. It's got acetamiprid, it's got emamectin. It takes care of the sucking, it takes care of the chewing. So normally, if you are going to apply 1 application per season, should be enough of that Optimeta. Or if you're really having only an issue with chewing pests, you can use emamectin. You can also use lufenuron. It depends. Those are the actives that are really effective in Zimbabwe at the moment. So you find that if you've got issues, you can use that.
Thank you so much, Liz, for such a detailed presentation and letting our Zimbabwean farmers take notes in terms of the chemicals that we're highlighting here for the success story or the success of their cropping ventures. On that note, we are going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in that 3rd and final segment. Stay tuned. Thank you, viewers, for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness, in support of Vision 2030. We are here in the 3rd and final segment of your program. We have taken the liberty of inviting Barry Stewart. He is here at Gwina Farm in Bankhead, as I have highlighted earlier on. Barry, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Wadzana. Thanks for having me.
Yes. As we get into our discussion, Barry, I would want you to talk to us in terms of the importance of irrigation when it comes to soybean production.
Sure. Thanks, Wadzana. I think with the soybeans in particular, to answer that question, I think the most important thing is at the start. We find if you're not planting into good moisture, germination's a problem. And when you've got a problem with germination in soybeans, you just don't get the population, which has a huge effect on yield. So we make sure that we're planting into adequate moisture and then follow up with the correct cycles. I think a lot comes back to choosing the right fields for the soybeans. Soyas, we find you can do the exact same thing in 2 different blocks, but one block which is healthy and got good soils and good moisture retention, it just completely outperforms another block which doesn't have the same sort of characteristics. So I think choosing the right field is very important, because it just helps you to get off to that much better start to get that population.
Okay, I want you to talk to us in terms of something that is of paramount essence, the acquisition of your inputs. If you look at the market right now in our country, everyone is manufacturing something targeting the commercial farmer. So at times farmers end up falling victim to those that are masquerading as rent seekers and yet they are not experts. Can you talk to us in terms of getting your inputs or your chemicals from reputable sources?
Thanks for that question. I think it's a very important question. I think in the past, because farming has been such a tight business, you're often sort of targeting or choosing a cheaper product, which has come back to bite us. We've seen it firsthand, where you've got two products which are sort of advertised to do the same thing, and one works really well and one just you get absolutely no performance from. So I think that's where working hand in hand with it's just taken so much pressure off of us, because we're not having to second guess where it's coming from. You know it's a good quality product, and we're seeing it's performing very well. So that's, it's been an absolute pleasure working with them.
Now, your day-to-day activities, your management style, I understand that you incorporate a lot of maybe activities, scouting, looking at what or maybe how you're watering your soya beans, general management of the soya bean crop, especially at this stage, it is headed towards podding. What are those maybe tactics, those strategies that you put in place to ensure that you are fully available for your crop at this stage?
So we've got a program that we follow, but it's very much a guide. It's something that just helps our management style. So everything that we do is based off of scouting. So although, for example, with the fungicides, we know sort of between day 50 and day 90 is the period where we should be spraying. But we work back from scouting. So when we see something, that's when we generally apply, because you can get caught either putting it on too early or putting it on too late. So we've got our program, which is tailor-made, which we use as a guide, but we're very much in field at all times, scouting and then managing from the scouting practices that we do.
Finally, as we close, talk to us in terms of some of the major pitfalls in soybean farming. The grain is small, meaning that getting maybe to a ton can be maybe a cumbersome task if you're not careful. Talk to us in terms of the major pitfalls where farmers are getting it wrong in soybean production.
It's a very good question. I think the way that the sort of culture that we're trying to plan around here with our farm and our business is we've got 5 pillars we work on. It's choosing the right crop, choosing the right field to plant that crop into, getting the timing right, getting the population right. So once you tick all of those sort of boxes, then it takes a lot of the guesswork out. It takes a lot of the risks out. So if we follow those sort of principles, our performance is generally better. So I think a lot comes down to the planning of the crop. Like I said, choosing the right field, choosing the right variety, getting the timing right, getting the population right, and I think also trying to enjoy it. Farming's it's been a very tough business for the last 18 months. So to try and you've got to have that passion and enjoyment factor as well.
In terms, speaking of passion and enjoying what you do, I want you to talk to us the availability of the farmer on the farm. We have farmers who just come with seed and chemicals, then they leave for Harare, they go gallivanting Manapus, Victoria Falls, and saying, my workers are working, I'm sure at the end of the day I'm going to get 10 tons or whatever. Availability of the farmer at the farm, you are hands-on, you are always around, you can really tell that this block is better than the other when we are doing our tour. Talk to us in terms of the importance of the availability of the farmer at the end of the day at his farm.
I think it's obviously paramount. Like I said, going back to the program, we've got our standard program, but everything it's just a guide. So you've got to be in your fields to see where the problems are and see how to react on time. Because if you're just following a standard program on a daily basis, you can either be too early or too late, which is a serious problem.
It was a pleasure having you with us today and affording us an opportunity to come and see for ourselves this beautiful crop that you established here at Gwina Farm.
Thanks, Wadzana. Thanks for having me, and thank you for bringing the rain.
From me, your host Wadzana Manyore, I'm also on Instagram, it's a W Manyore, and the crew behind the scenes. Have yourselves a fabulous evening. Thank you for watching.